Hello, everyone, and welcome to our online Claremont College reception. Today's event is on behind the scenes, looking behind the college admission curtain. I'm going to go over the program agenda. We're going to go over what we have in common as 5 undergraduate colleges within one intentional consortium. We're going to talk about the overview of the Claremont Colleges, where we are, who we are, why we're here. And then we'll talk briefly about each of our colleges and how we're distinct from one another. Then we'll dive into the behind the scenes where we're talking more specifically about the college admission process. As rising seniors, what should you be looking out for? What you should be looking ahead for the next year or so, or the next couple of months, depending on which application cycle you're planning to apply for. And then we'll end this presentation with a Q&A section. You can ask questions throughout the presentation. We have a Q&A box on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we also have chatters from each college who will be in there throughout the presentation, answering any questions that you have. If you have a specific question for any of the 5 Claremont colleges, we just ask you to add that college, like we have on this example, where we add Pitzer for a specific question geared towards Pitzer. That way, any of the chatters will be able to quickly locate questions that you have for their college and be able to answer them for you. With that, I'm going to hand it off over to Joey from CMC to talk about the Claremont colleges.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joey Cummings. I'm the Senior Assistant Dean of Admission at Claremont McKenna, and I'm super excited that you all are joining us today. I'm going to tell you a little bit right now about what we have in common and then give you an overview of the Claremont colleges, as Duan mentioned. And then I'll pass it off to Pomona, who will talk individually about their college, and then we'll go in founding order. So let's talk about what we have in common. We're all liberal arts colleges. We're all strictly undergraduate. Our student to faculty ratio is less than or equal to 10 to 1. So a lot of interaction with faculty available to our students. Average class sizes are less than or equal to 18. So classes are very small on our campuses. I think you can expect to be taught by faculty with terminal degrees in their field in the vast majority of your courses, and for the courses to be small and very interactive. We all offer funded research and internship opportunities. And so if you're interested in pursuing an internship or opportunity that might be your unpaid or underpaid, then you can definitely take advantage of funding for things like that. We all do provide access to the arts and humanities, natural sciences, social sciences, and interdisciplinary fields. So most of the types of academic interests that you might have, you can find at one of the colleges that you're interested in. In addition to that, you are able to study abroad with any of us, and we have many different types of study abroad programs that you can take advantage of. And we all are part of a Division III varsity athletics program. We're in the SCIAC conference, and I'll talk a little bit later about sort of how athletics are divided among the campuses. First, we'll talk a little bit about life in Southern California. If you're not super familiar with where we're located, Claremont is a suburb of Los Angeles, and it's probably about a 45 to 50-minute drive if you're going into the LA area. We're really centrally located in Southern California, so the mountains, the beach, and the desert in Los Angeles itself are all within about an hour of us. And so I always tell students that really any environment that you see yourself in, whether it's outdoors or whether it's city, you can definitely have that within a short drive from Claremont. In terms of getting here and getting around, we are located near some major airports. So LAX, I think, being the one that most people are familiar with, but then we have options like Burbank, Ontario, which is close by our campus. It's just a short drive, as well as the airports that are available in Orange County. We do have a metro link that runs from the village of Claremont into LA that a lot of our students utilize. It's fairly inexpensive, and it takes about an hour. And so if you do want LA access and maybe don't have a car or that type of thing, then you can hop right on the metro link and make your way into LA. We also offer zip cars on our campuses that students can take advantage of. If you need to make a quick trip to the grocery store or something like that, you can reserve one of those and use that for a few hours. The town of Claremont itself also offers Foothill Transit, which is a bus system that runs around Claremont. And so that's something that you can take advantage of as well. So there are lots of different ways that you can get around both the town of Claremont, but also the sort of greater Southern California area. So we'll talk a little bit about life in Claremont. So as I mentioned, the seven colleges of the consortium are all located in Claremont. Claremont is known as the city of trees and PhDs. We have lots of beautiful trees planted around the area, and it's nice and shady in a lot of places. And a significant number of folks with PhDs live in the town of Claremont, many whom teach our students on our campuses. And so we're very much known for that as well. It has about 36,000 people, 50 plus restaurants, 24,000 trees. I'm not sure who counted that, but that's awesome. I like that we know how many trees. And then also 21 plus parks. So a lot of opportunities to be outside and, you know, have a really nice experience around the town of Claremont. The Claremont Colleges ourselves are 5 undergraduate colleges and 2 graduate institutions. And as you can see on this slide, 6 of us are all in 1 square mile. There is Keck Graduate Institute, which is a little bit further off campus, but still very accessible for students to be able to get over to. I really like this map because it shows just how close we are to each other. You can literally walk across the street and be on another college campus. And so it makes sort of traveling between the colleges very easy. A lot of our students will ride bikes or skateboards or different types of transportation around campus, but they're also just very short walks from one campus to another. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the consortium. So Pomona College was founded in 1887, founded to be, you know, a liberal arts college in the New England style here in Southern California. And right after Pomona was founded, the population of LA County basically tripled in a really short amount of time. And so there's pressure on schools like Pomona and other schools in the region to begin, you know, admitting more students and meet that demand. And so the founders of the consortium thought to themselves, okay, we want to stay true to this small liberal arts college style. So maybe rather than expanding Pomona itself, we can think about bringing other liberal arts colleges here. And so that's kind of what they did. They decided that they would found one with the goal of being founding one of every 10 years, I think, of the 20th century. We only got to 7, and there are various reasons why. But I think as you hear about each of us, and I'll let each rep talk about their college and their founding, we were very much founded in sort of our missions were aligned with sort of the decade that we were founded in. And so you have Scripps College being founded in the 20s, so right around the time that women gained the right to vote. In the 40s, you have Claremont McKenna right after World War II. In the 50s, you have Harvey Mudd College around the time that the space race is starting up and that type of thing. And then the 60s, you have Pitzer College. So right around the time of major social justice movements and that type of thing in the US. So that's how we all kind of got here. And again, like our mission and our approaches to the liberal arts very much reflect the decades that we were founded in. In terms of academics, we all offer small seminar style classes. You know, I mentioned that the average class size is at or around 18. So classes are small. You can expect to know your peers. You can expect to be engaged really actively in the classroom. You can expect for your faculty members to know you and to really, you know, build a strong sort of academic environment. Again, we're all liberal arts, and so we will have things like general education requirements because we want students to explore different disciplines and also think about the connections between those disciplines. And so CMC calls them general education requirements. Scripps calls them core. We each call them a little bit something different, but they're sort of for the same purpose. We also offer cross registration. So we're all in the same academic calendar and all on the same course registration system. So you are able to cross register and take courses at the other colleges. We share a lot of resources because we feel like sharing is caring here. So there's a lot of accessibility to the academic environments of the other colleges. Most of us allow students to major off campus. And at CMC, for example, we allow students to major off campus in things that we don't have. And so a good example of that are, you know, arts programs. We don't have arts programs, but Pomona and Scripps do. And so our students can major off campus in things like music and theater and that type of thing. And each campus has a little bit different sort of rules around that they can speak to. We also offer intercollegiate majors and departments, which just means that faculty from each of the colleges contributes to teaching the courses within that major. So our Africana Studies major is an intercollegiate major and a good example of that. So faculty from each college teach courses that contribute to that major. In addition, 4 of us host a joint music program. So Claremont McKenna, Harvey Mudd, Scripps, and Pitzer have a joint music program where students can participate in both vocal performance, but also orchestra. And my understanding is that Pomona does have their own, and so their students are able to participate in their own music program. Dining is really flexible at the Claremont colleges. So your dining plan, if you're a student of any of one of the colleges, works at the other colleges, right? So you can be a Scripps student and come across the street and dine at CMC, et cetera. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of dining and where you have a meal. There's a lot of support for dietary restrictions and specific diets. And so there's something I think for everyone in terms of dining and a lot of options. And the food is excellent. I think most of my colleagues can attest to that. We love eating in the dining halls. In terms of clubs and organizations, between the 5 colleges, there's about 250 plus shared opportunities for clubs. And you can join them based on your interest. We have shared clubs like a circus club where they teach circus skills, and I think they have the whole trapeze set up and everything. There are things like Kombucha Collective, if you like kombucha and want to join that club and drink kombucha with your friends. But lots of different types of organizations, I really think truly something for everyone. Each college does have their own specific clubs and organizations as well, and so you can take advantage of those at your individual college. In terms of our athletic programs, we do have 2 athletic programs among the 5 colleges. So Claremont McKenna, Harvey Mudd, and Scripps have 1 athletic program. We have 2 mascots, which is a little bit unusual. We have the Stag for the men's teams and Athena for the women's teams. Pomona and Pitzer have their own program as well, and they are the Sage Hens. What is special about this is that we're all Division III, we're all in the SCIAC conference, and so we do play each other. And I think it's unique in college sports to have your rival be directly across the street from you. One of my colleagues likes to say that your friends over at Pomona and Pitzer are not your friends on game day if you're a CMS student, and vice versa. But it's truly a fun and friendly rivalry and a really unique opportunity, I think, to literally walk across the street and play your rivals. We also offer intramural and club sports that students can take advantage of. So definitely opportunities to engage in sports if you're not necessarily playing at the D3 level, but want to continue in terms of playing sports. We also all have commitments to community engagements in different ways. And so if you're interested in community service within the Claremont community or other communities in and around the college, then you can definitely take advantage of those as well. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about our shared policies. So we all take the common application. We all conduct holistic review. We all do require supplemental prompts, and those will be a little bit different sort of based on the individual college that you're applying to. We all do meet 100% of demonstrated need in terms of our need-based aid. And we all have early and regular decision options. And on each slide, you can kind of see the different types of apps we might take, whether or not we conduct interviews, whether or not we measure demonstrated interest. So I would just say kind of look at the slides of the colleges that you're interested in to kind of get a sense of what we might require. I think it is important to note, because I get this question a lot, that we do all have separate admission offices and processes. And so we might all be a little bit different in how we do things. And so just connect with an admission officer from the individual school you're interested in if you have questions about how we work. And with that, I'll pass it off to my colleague from Pomona, who will talk a little bit about their school.
Hi, everyone. My name is Phoebe. I use they, them pronouns, and I am an admissions officer at Pomona College. As was said earlier, Pomona was founded with the explicit mission to combine the West Coast ethos of innovation and energy in new industries with the breadth and depth of a liberal arts education. Breadth in that you are going to get a really wide range of experiences, both in terms of the curriculum, what you're studying, and also in terms of the people you'll meet, and depth in that there's an understanding that all of those different wide experiences are going to better inform the depth of your personal study. So in terms of our curriculum, we have breadth of study requirements. These are 6 categories. You choose the courses in those categories that are best going to complement your chosen major, which is chosen at the end of your sophomore year. Additionally, we are a majority minority campus, which means that the people that you interact with, the majority of them have experienced a marginalized perspective in some way. This is great for learning, but additionally, you're going to know that you're going to be able to have really strong mentorship opportunities, and people are going to be there and watching out for you when you need them. So about 58% and 80% respectively of our students complement all of their education with research and internships, and Pomona sees itself as having the role of really supporting those different endeavors. And with all of that said, I think I'm at time, so I will pass it off to Scripps.
Thanks, Phoebe. So hi, everyone. My name is Sinaida Reyes, and I'm one of the assistant directors of admissions at Scripps, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. So yes, we are a women's college, but don't let that scare you. You've definitely seen the interaction of the Claremont Colleges and how that really works. So it's as much of a women's college as you want to make it, but still benefiting the advantages of attending a women's college, you know, being in a setting that is for marginalized gender identities and seeing this space where you get to see staff like yourself, faculty like yourself, administration like yourself. And I think this really comes through in our core curriculum, which is our 3-semester sequence. And really the purpose of this core curriculum, which falls under our general education requirements, not specifically only our general education requirements, is that our school was founded in a time where women weren't exactly present in the workforce. So yes, it was great and dandy that women were going to college, but it wasn't enough. So wanting our students to have this foundation of looking at different academic disciplines in core 1, core 2, seeing the intersections of different academic fields, and then core 3, actively applying that knowledge so that our students will be well-rounded individuals, and seeing that specifically through a marginalized gender lens. So that's as much as I'll share a little bit about Scripps, and I will go ahead and pass it off to my colleague at CMC.
Hi again, everyone. So Claremont McKenna was founded in 1946, so right after World War II, if you think back to US and world history. Originally founded as a college for men who wanted to jumpstart their careers in things like economics, government, and international relations, and wanted to get a deep foundation in leadership so that they could become leaders in their respective communities. I think we stay very true to this mission today, really working to give our students practical opportunities where they can study abroad with us. They can participate in 2 domestic programs, full-time paid internship programs in Washington, D.C. and Silicon Valley. They can do significant undergraduate research. They can get a lot of support from our SAL Center for Student Opportunity, which is our career services office. So lots of practical experience, which is a real sort of foundation of our experience at CMC. In addition to that, as I mentioned, leadership, we do develop leadership skills in our students. We have what's called the Athenaeum, which is the dinner and speaker series that students can take advantage of, and meet leaders from across disciplines who they can learn a lot from, whether it's talking about their research, trends in their field, that type of thing. We also have a foundation in public policy. We want our students to be effective leaders, and to be able to do that, you have to have a deep understanding of policy, right? How to understand it, how to interpret it, and how to influence it. And so we do infuse that into the curriculum. And just sort of briefly, our students are about with about a little over 1,300 students total, about 34% from the state of California, about 17% international from over 40 countries, and the rest are domestic students from, I think, 47 states and US territories. So geographic diversity, our students identify as about 42% students of color and about 21% first-generation college students. And I think I might be reaching my time as well, so I will pass it off to my colleague from Harvey Mudd.
Hello, thank you for being here. So Harvey Mudd College was founded in 1955 during the Cold War, during the space race, so strong emphasis in science, engineering, and math education. We are the Claremont College that only offers 10 majors, all in science, engineering, and math. So the departments that offer majors at Harvey Mudd are biology, chemistry, computer science, engineering, math, and physics. We also have a 3 to 4 semester technical core, but we also emphasize broad education, and we want our students to take at least 11 classes or 25% of your courses in the humanities, social sciences, and the arts. So we work really well for students who want to focus in STEM and a particular focus in STEM, but don't want to give up other interests. Just keep in mind that we are not the only college that offers STEM across the Claremont colleges. Our neighbors, also offer great science and math programs, and there are also engineering pathways throughout each college. I think the one thing that I'll highlight is that we also have a capstone requirement, so every student has to complete either a senior thesis or clinic. And clinic is where companies like Google and Boeing Mercedes-Benz will sponsor projects with the college so that our students in groups of 4 to 5 will work on that project over the course of an academic year. I'm going to stop there and pass it over to my colleague, Pitzer.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everybody. My name is Santiago. Pitzer is the youngest of the Claremont colleges, and I think that really impacts our approach to the liberal arts because we have these 4 very amazing and established institutions next to us. Joey mentioned we were founded in the 1960s, so the March on Washington had a huge influence on what we wanted to do with the liberal arts. Student engagement is one of our core values, and to me the most important, because immediately we said we want students to sit in on every governing body of the college. So students really make decisions as to who our college president is, if faculty get hired, what our graduation requirements will be. They have a lot of input on that, and they impact our other core values. We're the first school on the West Coast to have divested the endowment away from fossil fuels. That's something that a lot of colleges talk about, but I think only these schools where students have such leadership and a vote on everything, we can really get past. Students created a social justice requirement for graduation. So you take a theory and then you take a praxis to really take action. Our students are really thinking about intercultural understanding. We mean that not just by studying abroad, which is very popular, and we operate 8 satellite campuses. We also mean it internally within the United States and engaging with communities that are not your everyday. And so those are really the things that you need to think about if Pitzer's on your list, and hopefully you'll learn more about them throughout the presentation. And
all right, so I can kick things off with where to start when thinking about college. The first thing I really want to emphasize is that this process is going to be a lot more rewarding if you use it as a time of reflection, as opposed to feeling overwhelmed or paralyzed or just feeling like you don't really know where to go. It's important to say that you all have accomplished so much in such a difficult time all over the world. So taking the time to reflect on that and really celebrate your accomplishments is going to be a rewarding experience. Additionally, in terms of building your college list and sort of thinking about the first kinds of places you may or may not want to apply, it can be really helpful to think about why you're prioritizing, what you're prioritizing. So if you say something like, I know I want a small liberal arts college, it's helpful to think of why. What about a small liberal arts college is really going to appeal to you? If you are looking at a specific part of the country, if like, I really want to live in SoCal, thinking about why can always be really helpful. So making sure that the reasons you are adding a school to your list is going to reflect the values you're trying to live. We can move on to the next slide. So extracurriculars and engagement. Right off the bat, important caveat, we all understand and empathize with the fact that this year was a tough year to be doing things. We can all definitely relate to that. So I want to just say that that is not something we are going to be surprised to see in an application. If there's a year skipped or anything like that, we understand. And all of that will be considered in our holistic review processes. Additionally, in terms of what counts as an activity and what you're thinking about writing down and just figuring everything out, activities, clubs, internships, volunteering, hobbies. Also, if you are someone who has a job, or if you are someone who works on like taking care of your family, or you have additional responsibilities, you run an Etsy shop, things like that. All of those can be included as an extracurricular. If it takes up a good significant chunk of your time and it's something that you really value and have learned from, feel free to include it. And then finally, the why, the what, and the how. So when you are writing down all of the different things that you have done, going through each one and thinking, why did I join this? Why did I like it? Why did I find it valuable? What did I get out of it? And what did I contribute to it? What did I add? And then finally, the how. How do I see this following me into the future? Is this something I want to keep doing? Does it really reflect something I love? Or on the other hand, does it not? Is this something that I really see leaving behind in high school, and why? And all of those questions are sort of a good place to start in terms of writing up your descriptions for the extracurriculars and figuring out what you want to say about each of these different activities you've been a part of.
My turn again. So interviews are another piece of an application potentially. You'll typically find that interviews will be optional, but it's important to look at each and every school that you are potentially considering in terms of how they approach interviews, in terms of deadlines and whether or not it's required or what the process is for gaining one. At the very basic level, it's a conversation that you're having with another person. And for me, I really hope that I'm able to have a natural conversation with that student so that I can learn about them, but they can also learn about me and my place at Harvey Mudd and my experience there. And really, again, it's usually about 30 minutes, but again, it'll depend. And if you're wondering whether or not you should do an interview, you should really look at the college first. So let's move on to the next slide. Because an interview, who are you going to have it with? You're going to have it with, it depends. Sometimes it will be one of the admission staff. It can be a trained senior interviewer, a trained student interviewer. It could also be one of a graduate from that college. It can be evaluative or informational, which means if it's evaluative, it usually means that some part of a report of some kind will be passed on to your application. Informational, it's meant more as to really give you information for you to learn more about the college, but even then, they may still pass on their impression of you. And it can be in many instances both evaluative and informational. Here's the tricky part in that different colleges and universities will approach interviews in different ways. And so you'll want to look closely at it in terms of the timeline of when you should interview. And that is the very first thing to note so that you don't miss it. And each of our websites will usually say like when we start offering them and up until when, and it may say that it's first come, first serve. You will probably say it's optional, but then there's like different levels of recommendation, like highly recommended. But generally, I think we all try to say that if you happen to not be able to get one, there may be other avenues for you to sort of present in that way. And if you don't happen to get one, it's not something that will be impacting your application. And then lastly, because of sort of the pandemic, a lot of interviews have shifted to virtual. But there may be still some colleges and universities who will be offering in-person options. But don't be surprised if a lot of the interviews this upcoming fall will be completely virtual. And again, in terms of why, it's a two-way street. We want to learn about you, and in that conversation, we hope you can feel comfortable and confident in talking about yourself. But it's also a way for you to get a feel for the school that you're considering. And maybe what you thought about them before the interview was very different than what you think about them afterwards.
So the personal statement and the college essays, frankly, my favorite part of my job when reading an application, and probably something that you are the most nervous about. And I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't be that nervous because we just want to learn about you, right? It doesn't need to be an academic essay. I think a lot of people are not used to writing something like this. And I always say, I want to have an essay that kind of feels like a conversation. Sure, it's only you talking to me, but I really want to be able to read it sort of cover to cover, kind of stream of consciousness. I will be looking for strong writing, but I'm not looking for an academic essay, right? So kind of throw that aside. It doesn't need to have a thesis statement, an intro, an end. It can just be about you. One tip that I always like to give is personal statement, right? If you have a mentor or an idol or somebody that you look up to, if you write about them, we're not learning as much about you, right? So you really have to think about, why is this essay, why is this topic reveal who you are? Do not feel like you need to have some sort of catchphrase or standout statement. Those are pretty hard to do. And again, we're not looking for an essay that we maybe remember at the end of the year or in several years. We're looking for an essay that describes who you are. This is much like the interview in the sense that we're looking for that right person for our institution, just like you're looking for the right college for you. So don't force anything. Let it be natural, and things will work out really in the end to the best of your interest. One thing that I think is very important is looking at our supplemental essays. We all require them at the Claremont Colleges. And this is where we get to distinguish ourselves, right? The personal statement, if you're using the common application, is something that you'll share with multiple colleges. So it really should be just about you, your intro, and us getting to know you. The supplemental essays will be about your relation to us. So for instance, Pitzer, I talk a lot about the core values, and our essay lists the core values and asks you to respond to one of them or multiple of them as to why they're important to you. We are doing two things there. We're signaling the importance of the core value, and then we're looking for why it's important to you and how you can really engage and contribute to us in that way. The best advice I can give is really just relax, right? Let it flow out of you. The not so secret information about the essay and how we use them in committee, and most schools do this, is I will read your essay cover to cover. I will present to the committee 1 or 2 sentences that summarize that essay. So when you have a college counselor or a parent or a friend looking over your personal statements and supplemental essays, ask them to give you a summary of the essay in 1 or 2 sentences, and that is probably the same thing that I will do. And if those 1 or 2 sentences don't really reflect what you were hoping for in the essay, you might want to go back and really emphasize the things that you wanted to push forward. Next slide, one. So letters of recommendation, which we all have different requirements for these. I think most schools require 2. Pitzer at the moment just requires 1. We will tell you often that we want to see pretty recent instructors. So maybe junior year, maybe senior year. I think we'll be slightly flexible on that, given that some of you may have had an entirely virtual junior year, and maybe that's just not the best example of your engagement in the classroom. But if it is, great. I think you definitely stick to that junior or senior year. But 10th and up is really what we're hoping for the most. You notice on the slide, Harvey Mudd actually requires 1 recommendation from a STEM field. Being a STEM school, that obviously makes sense, right? I think the rest of us will just ask you to play to your either academic strengths or personal strengths. We're all small colleges. You saw the average class size is 18. You're really going to get to know your faculty members here. It's going to be a lot of seminar style teaching and coursework. So we're looking for you to have a recommender that can show us who you are in that classroom, how you engage with a faculty member, but also with your peers. So those are the things to think about when you are getting these recommendations. We'll also be very forgiving, however, if you go to a really large school and the faculty member doesn't have a lot to say about you because it's just not the system. We know how to read around those as well. And I think that's going to be it for my letters of recommendation tip.
All right, as we kind of navigate the college search process, there's also this important factor of finances. You know, what's the financial fit for me here? So in thinking about all of our campuses and how we approach financial aid or how it works for us, there is a difference between us for having need-based financial aid. So when you either submit your FAFSA or CSS, they'll give you your estimated family contribution. It'll tell you this is how much you can pay. And being that most of us do meet 100% of demonstrated need, a lot of us will meet that need. So regardless of how much it costs to be at a campus or any one of our campuses, if your estimated family contribution is, we'll say $10,000, $5,000, $1,000, 0, we're going to meet that need. And it'll be with either scholarships, grants, loans. Some of us don't actually package any loans. It just depends on each school. So that's kind of how need-based aid works for us. For merit-based scholarships, that is not really related to need-based aid. You don't have to be applying for need-based aid to be considered for our merit-based scholarships. Each of those schools can approach them a little bit differently, but it is an important thing to consider as you consider your financial fit and reviewing your college search. Some other things that you can do considering based on your specific situation, and this is something I definitely learned even as an adult now when I'm filing my taxes, is to get all of your information together as soon as you possibly can, whether it's saving it somewhere on the drive, on your Google Drive, or putting it in an accordion folder, like having all this information in a centralized place, rather than always having to be like, I don't know what that information is or that question, as much as you possibly can find about your finances, and making sure, again, it's in one centralized place. While also thinking about scholarships, looking at local scholarships. I think sometimes the smaller scholarships can be overlooked because they're smaller amounts, but if you get a bunch of those, they really do add up. So making sure you look at local scholarships. Maybe it's at your family businesses, your parents' jobs, or it's in your community, your district, your school. Being really sure to look at all of the options that are available to you in your scholarship search, while also looking at search engines like FastWeb, College Board, Scholarship Monkey, College Greenlight. There's just really so many. So it's never too late or too early to be looking for scholarships. So just make sure that you're looking at it through different search engines. And while you're thinking about financial fit, it really is important to or one of the ways you can figure out if a school is within your financial fit is to familiarize yourself with My Intuition or the net price calculator. Those really do give you a good idea as to what your financial aid package might look like. So as you're making those decisions, this is one of the ways you can do that. But I also want to let you know that won't always take into consideration our merit scholarships. So it's more about need-based aid that this My Intuition and the net price calculator will be reviewing for financial aid and for scholarships. You can go to the next slide, Duan. Thank you. Now, thinking more about fall resources, we're wrapping up the summer. Maybe you're all kind of starting classes or getting ready to start classes. And as you're kind of approaching the college search, you're already doing one of the things. You're attending a webinar, you're attending a virtual event. And this is one of the ways you can definitely be engaged with the community and the college campuses that you're looking at. And there's also options, whether it's virtual or on campus. So I believe all of our campuses are offering virtual tours, or whether they're self-guided or guided tours. We have info sessions, which can be either virtual or in person. High school visits, maybe we might be visiting your campus on campus or through virtual. Be sure to check those out because yes, it's great you're all attended to this, but maybe you want to learn more specifically about one of our campuses or all of them. This is one of the ways that you can do that. And again, more virtual events like the ones right now, information sessions, campus tours, webinars, college fairs, interviews. We've talked about it a little bit about interviews. If you want to have more of that one-on-one conversation with an admission officer or an alum, or however it is that office runs their interviews, this is a great way to do that. Fly-in programs. A lot of us are asking, I know that there's been a lot of questions about fly-in programs in the Q&A. Ask which campuses are doing that. What are they offering? When is the deadline? So that way, as you get ready to go back to school or you're already in school, you're able to prioritize that with our virtual fly-in program. So you're able to get a sense of what it's really like to be in that community while also joining in on our mailing list or emails. Social media is always a great thing to check out. I always recommend checking out the admission accounts of each of our offices because that's where you might see a lot of student-led content while also highlighting your program. Send us texts, send us calls. Really, it's never a bother to us. It's us wanting to really help you in the college application process. I always also recommend just checking out College Board, Niche, I'm First, College Greenlight. All of these are great resources in being able to learn about your campus. Don't just go on the campus website, explore all avenues really. So you're really able to see if this is a good fit, just like you were trying to find a good fit. And you might find that you have a fit with multiple schools and that's okay. So this is one of the ways you can narrow down that list of fits.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the formal presentation and the questions are absolutely flying. So we're going to start with a couple. The first one is, what are the financial aid policies at each of the colleges and do you award merit? I am happy to kick this off. So Pomona College is need blind during the admissions process and also meets 100% of demonstrated need, as do all of the other schools. We do not award merit. All of our resources go towards need-based aid.
At Scripps, we meet 100% of demonstrated need as well. We are need aware, which just means that your financial aid situation might be a factor in our admission decision process. It's not necessarily, it will be, but it can be. We do offer merit scholarships. They range from $15,000 to $28,000 and are renewable for the 4 years that you were at Scripps. There's no additional applications, so less work for students to do, and all first-year applicants are considered for merit scholarships.
So just to speak to CMC's policy, we offer primarily need-based aid. We are need blind for US citizens and permanent residents, need aware for international students. We do offer a small amount of merit scholarships. And so if you're interested in those with us, you should just click submit on your application by December 1st, and that'll automatically put you in the pool for consideration.
Harvey Mudd is also full need, so we meet 100% demonstrated need. We are need aware, or we are need blind for U.S. citizens and permanent residents, need aware for students who are not U.S. citizens and permanent residents. And we offer a few merit scholarships, some of which do require a separate application. Those are due about 2 weeks after the application deadline of January 5.
And Pitzer is need aware in the admission process. We guarantee to meet 100% of demonstrated need for all students, and all students, regardless of whether they're applying for financial aid or not, are considered for our merit scholarships.
So another question that we're seeing a lot in different variations is test policies for next year. I know for sure that Pomona is going to be test optional through 2024, meaning that you absolutely can submit or you do not have to. And I think that holds true for many of the other schools, but I will let them speak for themselves.
Yeah, so Scripps is also SAT and ACT optional, but it's moving completely forward. It's not for, we actually voted to be test optional before the pandemic had hit. So it's not just for this year.
So CMC is test optional for students applying for admission for fall 2022. And then in the years beyond that, the college is still making a decision around that. And so if you're in our email pipeline, as they make those decisions, we'll roll those out to students.
Everyone's in a similar position in that we are test optional through fall 2022, and then we are trying to make a determination in terms of what our policies will be moving forward. I will add, because I saw this in the Q&A, Harvey Mudd previously required subject tests. We are no longer requiring or considering subject tests, and also the College Board has discontinued subject tests.
And Pitzer will not be using SAT or ACT exams for the next 3 years. They just will not have a place in our admission process as this pilot program rolls out. If it's decided that the pilot program will not continue, we'll go back to being test optional, which we have been since 2003.
Very cool. And then another question would be about social life at the Claremont Colleges and what that looks like.
Okay, I can start. I think it's really friendly. I think we each have our own sort of vibe on our campus, but most people have us on their radar because they really like that it's consortium and that you get to interact with students who would choose Scripps or would choose Harvey Mudd, right? And having that interaction, I think most of it happens on campus. The city of Claremont is really great when your parents come visit and you get to go out to the really nice restaurants, maybe just for hanging out a little bit during the day. But most of the scene is actually on our campuses. And what you'll find is a lot of coordination, right? That you're not going to find like 10 activities on Friday and nothing on a Saturday. The schools will be like, well, okay, there's already a lot going on Friday. I'm going to move this other concert to Saturday or this guest speaker to Sunday, just so that every day of the week you can access something that's not being stuck studying in your room. You will be working hard. I don't want to like downplay that, but we'd like to see a lot of balance between work and academics.
So a question, two questions that kind of go together. Can you apply to all 5 colleges, but also whether or not we share information about applicants with each other?
Oh, I always love this question. I feel it's pretty rare I meet a student who's applying to all 5 because each of us have different personalities. And I think Santiago was talking about that really well. You can, but I mean, I think it is pretty common for all of our students to at least apply to maybe at least one other Claremont college, but I think it's pretty rare. And the only way we know is if you write it in your application. While we share resources, we don't share admission information. I'm never going to go to Jason or Joey or Santiago or Phoebe and be like, all right, I want this student. Are they applying here? It's not a bidding war. The only way we know if you're applying to any of the other Claremont colleges is if you write it in your application. So this is where the why this college is so important, because the why this college, you'd be surprised how many times each of us get the wrong Claremont College. So just double check that.
I'll just add, because there's a few of us here who've actually worked for multiple Claremont colleges. We're looking for different things. Your application that excites Vanessa is not my application. So if you are applying to all 5 or multiple schools, you're writing completely new essays. Don't use the same one.
All right, another question up here is, is housing and how that works. Do we share residence halls across all the campuses, or is it more that we have our own residence halls? I actually can answer this. We have our own residence halls. So each of us has different living situations and different setups. What we do share are dining halls. We have 17 across all the campuses. I know Pomona itself has 3, and you can choose where you eat, but at the end of the day, housing is specifically for the college's students. And then a question that I liked and wanted to address was, someone said, can I get into a specific school if I have a C? And I would go back and emphasize the holistic process. And other people I think can probably back me up here, is that like, we're not going to be looking at that one C and making a decision. It is more going to be along of, what was that C in? Are you interested in studying it? All of these different questions. It is not going to just be a, oh, see it, done.
I would just add to that. I think that if you are concerned about maybe a grade you got in a course or two, then tell us about that, right? You know, you might have gotten sick during the semester, someone in your family might have passed away and you've had a hard time. All of that context is important to us, and on the applications themselves, you can add that into the additional information. So if there is something that you want to explain a little bit, there is the opportunity to do that.
So a question that we've gotten in various variations in the chat is, what does diversity look like at the 5 colleges, and what percentage of our students are students of color? Do we want to go in like reverse founding order, whatever would be easiest?
Sure. We're the youngest. I go first on this question. We're all going to be very diverse when it comes to higher education. You know, Pomona mentioned minority majority on their campus. I think the rest of us, probably upwards of 40% students of color, which is still not something I think we're all like satisfied with. We want more, but relative to other places of higher education, that's a really good number. And the way it operates in Claremont is like, Pitzer will have a Latinx group, but there's also the Chicano Latino Student Affairs Office shared by all institutions. Same for a Black Student Union on Pitzer's campus and an Office of Black Student Affairs at the colleges. Same for like the Queer Resource Center and Asian American initiatives. So it's not just how diverse is Pitzer, it's also accessing the diversity across the colleges.
So a question, did other schools want to take a stab at that? They don't have to. I have another question lined up if that would be, okay, cool, sounds good. So in terms of financial aid, this is a question for the need-aware schools. EFC, the estimated financial contribution for a family has been declared 0. So for need-aware colleges, what impact does a student's estimated family contribution have on their application?
I feel like I need a follow-up question with this one, but so those of us who are need aware, the reason we're need aware is because we have this commitment to fully funding you, right? Our financial aid budget does have a limit, and we need to know that if we're admitting you and you enroll, that we are able to fully support you through the process. An EFC is not, the tools that we use prior to you applying won't be exactly the same, right? The net price calculator is not going to get into the details that we might when we start to review you. So, you know, it might be updated incomes, it might be parental assets or siblings at other college, you know, any kind of number of questions that we might ask as a follow-up. So a 0 does mean to us that you are a full paying student, if that's what our financial aid also determines. it can swing either way, I think, right? Sometimes we say, well, we do need some students who are going to fully pay tuition. Or it may say, you know, we're actually good on that number. Need aware doesn't mean you don't get in because you need money. Need aware means, oh, you know what? The middle class is not very represented in higher education. And you're a middle class student, and I know that because I'm need aware, and we want to admit that. And middle class means a lot, right? So if you are able to pay the $80,000, you might still be middle class. So I think it swings in many different ways.
Thank you. And then a question here would be, how impactful / required are AP scores?
We're all shaking our heads because I don't believe, and I'm pretty confident in this, though, any of us require AP scores as part of your application. And so if you feel good about them and you want to share it with us, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And it's not something that will be considered as part of your application.
Definitely send them after you're admitted so that you get credit, but it doesn't matter in the admission process.
And then another is, what is a big mistake that you have seen in a past application? What would you recommend avoiding?
I'll go first. The one that stuck with me was I read an essay that just ended, but left me really confused. And what I assume happened was they were copying and pasting from a different document they were working on, which makes perfect sense. Like it's a great way to sort of keep organized, but they didn't copy the whole essay. And so just make sure you're not only proofreading where you're working, but also as you are submitting your application, make sure you review it so that it is correct. Because sometimes students think if I've submitted it, that's it. That's, you know, it's a static piece of it's a static document and I can't make changes. If you realize there's a mistake, let us know. We're happy to make changes to it.
Next up is, what does it mean when a college does not admit by major? So how do you support undecided or undeclared students? I can start off with this. It just means that we are not going to be admitting people into a certain major, at least in Pomona's process. I believe this is true for all of the other schools as well. It just means that that is not going to impact your application. You may say that you really want to major in computer science and then switch to art your second year. That's totally fine. You will not have an issue doing that move, and it will not be taken into account during the admissions process.
And I would add, I mean, I think that the beauty of a liberal arts college process, right, is that we're going to require you to take courses in the humanities, in the social science, natural science, math. And so you really have the opportunity to explore disciplines. Some you might have studied in high school and some that might be new for you. And a lot of us don't require you to declare a major until the end of your second year. So it gives you a lot of time to explore, and you will certainly have access to academic advisors, folks in the registrar's office, and lots of people you can talk to about majors of interest and how to explore them and that type of thing. So there's a lot of support available to students for exploring majors.
I think I saw Zenaida's.
Oh yeah, I was gonna backtrack a little bit just about like the biggest mistake for the college application. For me, it's kind of two things. So one is like not writing out the acronyms of the clubs, because if I'm in committee trying to advocate for a student and if they all use GSA, like that could be Gender Sexuality Alliance, that could be Girl Scouts of America, that could be Gay Straight Alliance. So, you know, and reviewing the applications, we're trying to think of this academic and community fit. So if we can't really imagine that, it's kind of like, well, I don't know what you would do on our campus. At least that's for me. And I think going back to Santiago's point in the slides is that, you know, whether it's like your mentor or like, you know, anyone, I think a lot of the times we forget to really write about ourselves and trying to create this like really unique hook. So making sure it really should just be about yourself, just being genuine who you are. Every sentence you write about someone else, there should be two more about like you, really.
Awesome. And then next up, career centers and whether they are shared amongst all colleges. Can students secure internships and research before graduating? Career centers, I don't believe are shared among all colleges. You are absolutely able to talk to not only an office, but also faculty members and peers about internships and research. Absolutely. At all of the schools, you were able to find funding. I think as Joey might have been the one to mention that earlier, for both research and internships. If there are specific programs, I know Pomona has the summer undergraduate research program, as well as the Pomona College internship program. Would the other schools be able to share some of their opportunities as well?
Sure. So CMC has a sponsored internships and experiences program. And so if you're interested in an internship or experience as unpaid or underpaid, as a student, you can put together a budget and submit it to our SOL Center. And then they will award you the money sort of based on what your need is to be able to go take advantage of that opportunity. In addition to that, if you do research on our campus through one of our research centers or with individual faculty, for the most part, those are paid positions. So you are being paid for your work while you're doing it.
Pitzer does have paid internships so that we can provide the funding if the internship you find does not provide a stipend or any sort of salary. The one thing I'll add is, yes, we all have our own career service offices. However, they're very friendly to others, right? It doesn't, Google is not going to visit Harvey Mudd, Pitzer, Scripps, and Claremont McKenna separately. They're just going to go to Harvey Mudd, and Harvey Mudd invites all of us to go interview there. And we bring out other types of employers. Last I heard, the 5 of us collectively bring out more employers than UCLA, which is a beast of a college compared to our tiny schools.
And to just piggyback on that, just like in the same way that we are coming together and collaborating in admissions offices, like other offices across the Claremont Colleges also actively collaborate. Because I think in terms of like attracting recruiters, you can tell them you're not only getting one school, you're getting 5 undergraduate colleges. And so these opportunities, even though they're like very specifically structured to support the students that are at each of our institutions, we also try to actively support students across the Claremont Colleges.
Yeah, and just adding to Jason's point, I think a great example of that is research. It doesn't necessarily have to be just your campus that you're conducting research. You know, it can be across the Claremont Colleges, which is a great way to get that experience for jobs, internships, or also graduate school.
All right, a quick question here about creating your own major and whether that is possible. At Pomona, it absolutely is. There is a committee process. And what does that look like at each of the other schools?
Definitely very popular at Pitzer. It's usually in our top 5 most popular options for students. It basically just means you have to find 2 advisors, and one has to have somewhat of a background in the field that you're looking for. But I think for us, it's often very interdisciplinary in nature, right? That we're starting to see all these things come together, and that would be the emphasis. It cannot be something like, I hate stats, so I'm removing stats from psychology and calling that a major, right? It's still going to be fully vetted by the registrar so that if you're applying to jobs or grad school, it's still very competitive.
It's possible to create your own major at CMC as well. Maybe not the most common things that students do on our campus. It has to sort of be a combination of academic areas that you maybe couldn't find in our more traditional majors and sequence experiences.
Very similar at Harvey Mudd.
Scripps too.
Very nice. So up next is test optional really optional, and how does a student stand out if they apply without test scores?
You know, one of my coworkers, I feel like she explains this really well. Like looking at the application like as a pie, where just because we don't have the scores, it doesn't mean that you're missing a slice. It just means bigger slices of each thing. So no, you're not at a disadvantage. Like if we're test optional, honestly, I would have definitely taken advantage of that because I am a horrible test taker. But it's not putting you at a disadvantage. We are truly test optional or test blind. Like that is our policy. And so we can never go into committee saying, oh, we wish we would have had their scores, because that defeats the purpose of being test optional or test blind.
We had this debate when we were trying to go test blind altogether. And a lot of students on our campus who had submitted testing prior, who thought that got them in. That never gets you in. That does not get you into any one of us. Jason is not going to committee being like 800 math, right? That's not exciting in a committee, so.
I have actually started saying that out loud during presentations. Like, if your test scores are fine, I'm never mentioning them. Like, it's just not, it's not the thing that's gonna be the differentiator between you and like in the committee process.
All right, and here we have a question that I honestly don't know the answer about, which is double majoring across campuses an option? And I'm not sure if they mean across the 5 colleges or in a school. But would you be able to do like a double major, one at Pomona, one at Harvey Mudd?
Yes, and I actually want to use this opportunity to talk about off-campus majors because we had a question for Pitzer. But yeah, you can definitely double major if your home institution doesn't have that major, right? Like you couldn't double major in sociology at Pitzer and econ at Claremont McKenna because we have an econ program, right? So it has to be something like geology, which only Pomona offers, or theater, again, that is on Pomona's campus. You can definitely do it. The thing with off-campus majors is it's a two-way street. So we got asked a question about computer science, going to Pitzer and majoring in computer science at Harvey Mudd. Now, Pitzer will allow you to do that. That doesn't mean Harvey Mudd will allow you to do that. It's really dependent on availability. Computer science is a very popular major. And so I can point to students on our campus who are doing that as a major. I cannot guarantee that Harvey Mudd will continue to be available to our students in that way. So definitely choose the college that 100% will give you that guarantee. Right now, we're not that college that can 100% guarantee that Mudd will let you in.
I believe the one other major that is very difficult logistically to complete as an off-campus major or is not allowed is engineering. So students at the other colleges are not allowed to access engineering. And a lot of it has to deal with sort of like the incompatibilities of like educational missions of these other institutions and the weight of an engineering major at Harvey Mudd.
All right, so next up, how are the relationships between students in the distinct colleges? Is there a sense of competition or more so a sense of community and collaboration?
I would say there's more a sense of a community. I mean, maybe on game day when it's like the Sage Hens versus like, you know, the Athenas, like, yeah, there's definitely that. If you want that level of like Division III, like athletics, it's there, but you really don't even know who's even sometimes like a Scripps or Pitzer or Harvey Mudd or Pomona student. And you really won't probably know till you see their email address. And so I would say it's very collaborative. It's as big or small as you want to make it. I know I've met students across the Claremont colleges where they spend more of their time at their home campus, but they still might take classes at the other schools. The consortium is however big or small you want to make it. There's not a specific percentage of, oh, X go to this school or that school. It really just depends.
I'll just add quickly, it's like a big family. Like as someone who graduated almost 15 years ago, like I love running into other graduates of the Claremont colleges because there's this immediate shared experience, even if we didn't overlap at all. And so I run into Claremont McKenna graduates, I run into Pitzer graduates, and it's just like, oh, you went to Harvey Mudd, I went to, and so it's really great that it continues like far beyond just the 4 years that you're here.
And then we have a question here. Is it okay to pick an engineering major, but go to a school that's not Harvey Mudd? Will the opportunities be the same or close enough? I think it would be fair to say it will be a different experience. Like Pomona, it's a 3-2 program or a 1-2-1-1 type program. But yes, engineering is offered at the other schools. And Jason's nodding, which makes me feel great.
Yeah, just like the thing about, right, like regardless of what kind of engineering pathway you choose, like you are getting a fantastic education. A liberal arts education with STEM is just so powerful, especially if you just look at the world and what's happening. It's literally burning. And we need STEM professionals who can think outside of sort of the traditional approach and to address problems interdisciplinarily and communicate those ideas very well. And so regardless of where you're looking, an engineering education, and especially if you're able to really do it within a liberal arts context, is just so, so crucial, in my opinion.
And then next up, are there opportunities to get out of the city and into the wilderness?
I think we all have our own outdoor adventure group, but I really like the collective one. It's called On the Loose. So it's all 5 undergraduate schools going to Joshua Tree or Death Valley. The number of times I see trips to Death Valley during a semester is quite amazing. But we love the outdoors, and it's really great on weekends to be able to do those things. We're an hour from the mountains, an hour from the desert, an hour from the beach. So you have the opportunity of many types of outdoor activities.
And then the classroom experience. Are classes interactive? This was also asked in terms of like in STEM classes, do people actually get a chance to have a hands-on experience, things like that? I'm happy to start this off and say yes. I think all of these schools really value experiential learning, being able to apply your learning to practice and be able to go out and see how the ideas and the theories that you're talking about are going to impact the world around you, and how they have already impacted the world around you. And that can take the form of field trips, labs, anything like research, internships. All of that is going to be a very hands-on experience. It looks like we are coming up to our last question, which is, are any of the colleges encouraging students to get vaccinated? Also happy to kick this one off. Yes, Pomona is requiring it.
CMC is also requiring students to be vaccinated unless they have a religious or medical exemption.
Same at Scripps.
I think we're all doing it. And just so you know, for those students who are coming from locations where they can't get vaccinated, like a lot of our international students, we are getting them to campus early so that we can quarantine them. And I think last I heard, we are all approved providers of vaccines. So you can get them directly from our health center, either on our individual campus or the shared health facility that's kind of in the central part of all 5 of us.
And with that, we are at the end of our OCCR. I know we've had a lot of questions come in, more than 250. So if we weren't able to answer your question, it might have been because it was a little bit more specific for your needs or your application questions. If your question was unanswered, feel free to email any of us at our admission offices, and we'll be able to get back to you with an answer. Thank you so much for our presenters for being here today, and for our students for joining us. Have a good evening.